Hi class. So CSS, it stands for Cascading Style Sheet. And you can look at a website if you go to a browser and you go into View, Page Style, No Styles. You'll see what the browser reads with pure HTML. The browser has these defaults built in that have lists and bullets and indents and the links have an underline, things like that. If you don't like that, you need to override that in your own styles. So you link a separate style sheet that's next to your index page or next to your pages. It can be in another folder, and you just put a path. So you link that in the head of your HTML in the very top. So you tell it that this is a style sheet there, and then you tell where the hyperlink reference is located. Usually it's called styles.css. No spaces in the name, one again. And you could possibly hard code styles into an HTML document. That's the way it used to be in the past. And if you write newsletters that are embedded into your email, you also still have to hard code the styles in that because they cannot link to an outside file. However, it's not recommended because if you have the point of having style sheets is making one class and then using it all over for every element that you have so that you don't have to rewrite into every of those elements your style and your design elements. It just makes it easier if you have several buttons, which you will have on a website, that you don't have to style each one separately, but you style them all together. So if you later on decide to change the color, all you have to do is go into the style sheets and change that one class of your button colors or so. Here's the thing where you have to plan out a little bit, because you can give groups a certain attributes of, like, let's say here the color red, so that all the paragraphs, the H1 and the H2s, all have the text color red. You could also do this separately on the top, but you can put them together as commas. And that comma is kind of important, which I think I get into a little bit later. So you can comma separate different classes into one rule as a group. It's also really good for programmers and for everybody else that follows up later on to write yourself little comments. So you know where you put these things, and you can like maybe put a little explanation. Here it starts where I'm styling the buttons. Here it starts where I'm styling my paragraphs. Here starts all the navigation, or you can put these comments in and explain to somebody else that looks at your file that it kind of makes sense. Also, you can comment out what people say, rules that you might want to keep there for now, but you don't want them to show up just so you don't delete them. You can comment them so they would be sort of not visible for the style sheet, but later on when you decide to not make that change, you can just take the comments away again and it will show up again. So that's also a good way to test things out. It's called commenting out. And in those // star, and then you write your comment, and then the star and the // closes that part again. It's different in the HTML, sorry. Everything is a little bit different from HTML and CSS. Unfortunately, they didn't make it the same. The comments in HTML, as you see on the bottom, start with a different syntax than the comments that start in the CSS. It's the same with HTML. You usually have a equal sign here, like after the class equals. In the CSS, you have colons, as you can see here, special color, colon, orange. So there's another difference that I often in the beginning got confused which one is which. Now, why didn't it work? It's quite often because you put an equal instead of a colon, or vice versa. So here you can see how it works. In your HTML, in these unordered lists, that's the UL, what it stands for. And then the first list item and the second list item has a class called special. You want this to be different. So that special, the class is with the period, and then the class name, then a space, and then a curly bracket opens. And inside all those, the curly brackets here, you could see the color is orange, the font weight is bold. You can also give something an ID. IDs are meant quite often for JavaScript, or you can also treat it just, it's kind of works the same way as a class, but you should not have more than one ID. It's meant to be one instance, so you can target that, because it could confuse it if it finds two IDs at the same time. If you have a program like change this in JavaScript and it finds two things, it will confuse. It will probably take the later one, but it's good to have only one ID. So you could give it different IDs, like here's a prefix 1, prefix 2, and so on. That's okay, but they have to have different names. You don't want to give the same ID name to several parts on your page. You cannot do spaces in the class names. If you see here on the top, it says top menu, top space menu. That means it's actually using the classes top and the class menu. So it's using two classes. That's possible. But if you wanted to target that one class that you call top menu, you should write it with a dash so that there's no more space. So you could also add an ID and a class into your div or into your tag there. So it doesn't have to be a div. It could be an h1, could also be a tag. You can add these classes and IDs into any kind of tag. So there are different opportunities, but if you don't find any other tag around, just use a span or a div. Most of the time, I would say it's a div. When there are conflicting classes, I see that quite often, that people just keep writing and writing, making several classes, and they overwrite each other sometimes, and you don't know what was there before, because it will take the latest one. Basically, it reads down the list, and it will overwrite the one that it read first, because it will take the latest information that it has, unless sometimes that could be important, because there could be ways that you have a plugin and you can't overwrite the CSS that it's using in that plugin, for example. But you want to make sure that your style is stronger. Then you can add an important behind your rule, and that will make it one step above that. Of course, if you add another important later on, that will overwrite your important. You cannot add more importance than that. That's like the highest. But it could be useful to know, why isn't it changing? Why is it changing? Because it might be still overwriting from some external style sheet that's more important than yours. In the links, they're by default blue, but like here, it would say, if you hover over it, it would make it blue. It could say the visited link, like every link is an A. And then this visited link, the color would be purple and the color would be pink. And then we're going to try to play around a little bit in a codepen to see exactly how changes in a CSS take direct effect. You can see exactly what's happening right away. So it's kind of a nice thing to just look at it and play around with it. And that's going to be the next assignment we'll do together. Thank you.